Hello, people of grace. In our sermon series, we've been working through First John. And this Sunday, or maybe this Sunday and the following Sunday, we will be wrapping up First John. And First John ends in chapter 5 with this statement about praying for each other's sins and then having those sins covered and resolved. But then John says there is a sin that leads to death. I'm not asking you to pray about that. Well, that's interesting. There's something that an apostle tells us not to pray about, or at least ask us not to pray about. So we'll talk about that more on Sunday, but I want to focus on how we help each other with sins that we can help each other with. And to do that today, I want to ask a question. Are we protectors? I want to look at Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. And Paul is writing that letter, and he says, "Brothers and sisters, if anyone is caught in any transgression, you who are spiritual should restore them in a spirit of gentleness." So transgression here in this passage could be intentional and premeditated, or just something that you got caught up in the moment and you messed up. So a premeditated one, we think would, of course, be more severe. But Paul's saying any transgression, even if it was premeditated and hard-hearted, that our first response, if we are as spiritual as we think we are, or maybe even claim to be, should be to respond with a spirit of restoration and gentleness. The idea of gentleness there is someone who really handles their own emotions well, and is not prone to disputing or arguing forever or resisting. It's someone that has a very deep sense of God's presence and goodness to them. I call this idea of gentleness more commonly the old term meekness, and it's mastery of the self's response to God. So that's important to note, because right after Paul talks about restoring the spirit of gentleness, he says, keep watch on yourself, lest you too be tempted. Well, we could be tempted with the same issue that this person is caught up in, but I think in this context, Paul is more telling us to check our attitude when someone else is caught up in a sin. So our first big question is, someone else is caught up in a sin, how much do other people's issues upset you? And if they really upset you in a way that causes you to maybe be contemptuous of them or look down on them or say, I can't imagine how anybody could do that, and you get really kind of embittered about that or harsh toward the person, you have just been ensnared in a temptation that might be more severe than the sin of the original transgressor. Because to look down on a sinner or to be harsh toward a sinner is so completely contrary to how we need Jesus to respond to us. Rather, we should be protectors. We should be helpers. I often say that everybody, maybe even especially men, but in the end, everybody, man or woman, will be one of three things. You will be a protector, or you'll be passive and just not get involved and stand on the sidelines, or you'll be a predator. If you come in with a harsh attitude towards someone caught in sin, you're being a predator. If you just say, stand on the sideline and have no real desire to help, that's passive. We're here to be protectors. Are you a protector? Because if you're not determined to be a protector and to respond with gentleness and meekness, you will never actually find yourself. If you stand on the sidelines and are critical, but don't really help people bear the weight of sin, then you're not as spiritual as you think you are. Paul says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. And if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he's not actually bearing other people's burdens. He doesn't have a gentle, helpful spirit. Then you're not as spiritual as you think you are. You're only deceiving yourself. And if you're deceiving yourself and you're not actually being a protector, you can never find yourself. That's how verse 4 ends this passage. Let each one of us test our own work, and then our reason to boast will be in ourselves alone and not in anybody else. We each have to bear our own load. Someone's sin is a very heavy transgression, a very heavy weight to bear. That isn't what Paul's talking about in verse 4 here. Paul's talking about you are created to be a protector and a helper. That is our calling. We can help others, but no one can do for you what God has called you to do. Find yourself. Be a protector. Have a gentle spirit. It's a beautiful thing when we find ourselves growing in that area. It's very encouraging. It makes us a little bit more functionally like Jesus, and that's always worth the effort. Have a blessed day.